I mentioned, we started this last week. I did record it, and I am going to send that out to everybody because it kind of sets up the tone of what we're going to be doing for the next few weeks on Friday. So share some of the questions that we went over and that type of a thing. And we're going to just dive right in. So the first thing that I want to do is just start with, why do we ask questions? What's the benefit of using questions instead of telling our client? Is there a time to tell? Yes, right? And yet really it's utilizing questions is going to be the biggest opportunities that we have. So I want to hear from you guys. Maybe if you were on the call last week, something that you picked up around, some of the things that we talked about, the benefits of using questions. What do you remember? Maybe even how did you use questions this week?
Like for me, the questions, I think we talked about make the person feel like learning their value or making them feel valuable. And it also cut out on a lot of the just like me talking too much type thing. You like ask them 2 to 3 questions before you show any type of thing you relate to so that you don't feel like you are trying to one up them. And really making them feel happy, I guess. If we start asking them, like what they do or why they want, you start seeing them smile as they answer versus, coming at you as a stranger.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's 100%. And what you were referring to there was the inquire, follow up, relate. So when you ask a question, so you're going to ask a question, that's the inquire. Follow up to what they said by asking another question, and then relate. And that's what Kelsey was referring to, so that we don't, it's not, oh, I like horses, me too. It's, oh, I like horses. Then if you asked them a question, what do they like? They said they liked horses. Now you're going to follow up. How long have you been liking horses? Or how did you find out you liked horses? Or how long, and then relate. That's so cool that you shared that. I also grew up riding horses, right? So, so thank you for bringing that back up. So questions hold the power to cause us to think, create answers that we believe in, and motivate us to act on our ideas. And if we think about it, that's what we want our clients to be able to do. Asking moves our client beyond like passive acceptance of what you say, or maybe even staying stuck in their present circumstances, to, and this is the key word, aggressively applying their creative ability to the problem. So not just yours. Right now, it's they're also aggressively applying and looking for creative solutions to the problem. So asking questions forces your conversation to become less about your thoughts, your input, and how you can steer the dialogue to the answers that will help them think. This also ensures that we start listening, really listening to the other person. So just like Kelsey said, we get to decrease what we say and let others increase. And this is where the magic happens. The more we listen, the more we see how capable people are and how much they can do with a little encouragement, and what wonderful individuals they are. The more you ask, the more you love. And I know in a real estate conversation today, that might sound a little weird, and yet think about the people that you really enjoy working with. When they bounce up against something, or maybe they get hard-headed or bullheaded about something, you know where they're coming from, so it doesn't irritate us as much, or we don't get right, like we can still be over there with them. So that's a little bit about, and we went a little deeper into that last week, and again, we'll send that out. So today's agenda, we're going to look at starting significant conversations. We're going to focus on like people that we don't know. If we're networking, if we're, our initial conversations and things like that. And then we're actually, I was going to cover some top 10 question mistakes. We may hit that, but I think I'm actually going to, we're going to bump down, and we're going to really look at an effective consultation session and what is included in there. Because even though I'll be going over like an effective consultation, whether you think of it right now as you do an actual, consultation when you're meeting with the buyer or a listing presentation, it's all a consultation. Even if it's a, even if you don't go, well, I don't, do that. You do. You just may not do it. You may be doing it on the phone or in person, but but we want to look into, do we have all of these pieces? And then, of course, I'm going to give you guys some homework so that we continue to implement, because learning about it, if you walk off of this call and hopefully you say, wow, I learned something. Yet if we don't implement it, it just became entertainment. And we're looking, the education for implementation, not education for entertainment. Because if we were here for entertainment, make that entertaining, right? But for implementing, that's going to be the key here. So we want to start, I wanted to hit the just starting significant conversations. I want you guys to think about just everyday conversations. We want to start taking them from surface to significance. So, think about when we ask, how are you, or what's new with you these days? Well, we get the standard replies. Well, I'm going to ask you guys to take a risk. Ask about something that you really care about, right? So this is one of the things that you guys might practice this week. So these are some examples, okay? So think about some icebreakers. We all, how are you today? Well, when they give us the fine or good, now I'm talking about when you just, two strangers walking in the hallway, don't try to stop them. If you're legit talking to one of your clients, how are you today? And they go, fine. Go, well, what makes today a fine day? Or what makes today a good day? Like, be curious, be interested in them. If there's somebody that you've never met, or maybe you've been showing them a while and you're like, oh, I forgot, I'm not really sure. Hey, what do you do for a living? But don't stop there. I want you to go further. And what do you like best about your job? Or what do you like best about your role or your company? Maybe what's something memorable about you that I can remember you by? If you ask something as small, where are you from? Don't stop there. It might follow up with, well, what's been your favorite place to live? So this kind of goes back to that inquire, then a follow-up question, and then relate, okay? Let's say that you are doing a consultation or you're in an open house. Well, what brings you here today? And they say, well, I'm just looking, and again, these are just some examples. What do you hope to gain from purchasing a home? What do you hope to gain from being at the open house today? Well, I want to see what's on the market. Completely get that. When I was buying or looking to move in this area, we did the same thing. Now I've inquired, I followed up with a question, and I have related. Same thing, how's your day going? Then, however they say, you might go, well, what's been the high point so far? So again, like, this is nothing, I'm not sharing anything earth-shattering, right? And yet we tend to, it's about the foundation. So often we just tend to stop there, and yet we're consultants. We want to go deeper. So before we go to the next piece, I want to hear from you guys. Like, what are you picking up?
Just don't be afraid to have those conversations, kind of find out where they're standing on the whole situation.
Yeah. I love that.
The icebreaker for me is like asking if they have kids or pets, because I have a bunch of pets, but I don't have kids, so I can't relate to the kids part of it. But if they have kids and pets, that's a win-win.
Yeah, well, and I even love that, and being able to take it one step further. Who all's in your family, or who all will be living in your house, and because like you said, and then we give it, because we were going to be talking a lot about, and we talked a lot about last week about open-ended questions. We want to make sure that we're asking questions and there is a time and place for closed questions, meaning yes or no, right? yet we want to use them less, not more. Okay. So, so again, significant questions go a little deeper than icebreakers. They make people think about something important. They draw out a person's identity or touch their deepest desires. This was where I thought I was going today when I created this slide, and I'm actually not. We're going to skip over this, but I am going to mention this. If you haven't, I'm going to ask you guys, Google or go to YouTube. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more next week, but I want you to think forward: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. When we are looking to connect with people, that's a great, great piece to start. So if you guys would just Google and listen to a few different people talk about that, you might even say Ford for real estate, right? And like I said, we'll get into that more next week, but really getting over to the other person.
What was the deal, Olivia?
Dreams.
Okay.
I will tell you though, think of dreams as, a dream can be like, oh, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to save the world. But in this context with Ford, dream could be, and next week, and we're getting ready to go to Disney. Right. So we just like, does that make sense? Like, it doesn't have to be this big dream that we're talking about, but I'm going to break down and give y'all some specific questions around that. So we're going to go straight into an effective consultation session. This can be a listing consultation. This can be a buyer's consultation, whatever that looks like. So an effective consultation session. This is a way to let people potentially kick the tires. It lets them ask questions, lets them talk about what they want for their journey, what are their house needs, all those things. And this is the kicker: it is a chance for you to present working with you to an interested person. So there are several things that you want to accomplish in this session. And so if you guys are taking notes, this is where I'd be writing some pieces down. And again, I will be sending this out as well. The effective consultation session. Okay. So these are the 5 pieces that we want to make sure is in every consultation. Connection. Are we making a personal connection? And basically, I was reading, and I like the way we're looking to find that spark of chemistry with each other. So if if you don't feel connected, odds are they don't either. And so find that spark of chemistry. So connection, and we're going to talk about some questions that we can ask for that. Motivation. This is the heart of the session. This is where we want to explore the client's motivation and how we can help. Now, when we think motivation, many times when I'll ask not just you guys, but a lot of people say, what's their motivation? And you guys will say something like, well, they're having another kid. Okay, that's not their motivation. That's what's happening. But their motivation is, we're having another kid and we don't have anywhere to put them. And that's causing me stress. Just like the motivation is that thing behind it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then we do the presentation. Again, we say presentation, but I think sometimes people think that it has to be like a slideshow like I'm using today. No, I give you guys presentations all the time. You guys give me presentations. Listing presentations, most of them, and even some buyer consultations. I didn't use a presentation as far as showing them a slideshow, but it was 100% a presentation, right? What we're doing in a presentation is we're taking their need and we're showing them how working with us can help them meet it. That is the presentation. And then information. This is where we provide any information that the prospective client needs to make a decision. And then number 5, we ask for a commitment. We always want to make sure that we ask for that commitment, we get that commitment, okay? So that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, as we're going through these pieces, because we're going to break each one of them down, I'd love to know your thoughts, what you've done, what works, what helps. Sometimes what you did and you realize that it didn't work, right? If we want to go deeper in any of these, but this isn't just a one-way dialogue of me talking with you guys. I want to hear from you guys. So right here, if we look at, so when we go to connection, this is that key element in the relationship, right? When we talk about let's find some chemistry, getting to know the details of your clients' lives, unearth the point of connection that creates a bond. So what's the genuine curiosity? What's the intentional listening? And what's the excitement that, us working together brings? It creates that spark that makes people want to work with you. So some questions that you might ask. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a quick sketch of who you are, and then I'll do the same. What led you to accepting my invite to meet? Whatever that looks like. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll throw it into my yes, I'll throw it into the chat box so that we can add some of these. So what are some of the questions that you might ask to when you are meeting somebody to create a connection?
I'll go.
Okay.
I generally do a little Facebook stalking. I like to see, do they have kids? Do they have pets? Are they religious? Do they like music? What do they collect? What do they share? Like political thoughts, all of those things, so I can be careful in my conversations to them. So I can seem the same as them. Even if I did before I had a dog, if they liked pets, I talked about how much I love pets, and oh, y'all have a dog too. So I think trying to, I don't know, I just always have kind of looked at the client first, so that way I can make sure to get in front of them. Kids are a given and easy. Play with the kids and the parents will love you. So I definitely think doing a little bit, like even 3 minutes of digging before you get there will tell you how to talk, how to speak, how to dress, how to act, and that goes a long way.
Amanda, did you Facebook stalk me?
Yes.
I did. I won't even tell you what I thought.
Oh my goodness. Now you have to.
Yeah. Well, and for everybody, like what she just said is huge, because so often we don't think about that. And but yes, because you think about it, hell, 20 years ago we didn't have that option. We were just having to show up blind. But now so much stuff is online, like 1,000%. You set an appointment with somebody, or you're going to go meet with them. You're having some good go Facebook stalk them. Absolutely. If you don't get anything else from this call today and you're not already doing that right there will make you lots and lots of money. Thank you for bringing that, Amanda. Okay. Anything else? Who else? What do you do to connect with your people?
So I it seems to happen to me. So I try to do it the same to others. If I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt, typically when I get out the car, I'm headed to go shake their hand. The first word out of their mouth is, "Oh, I love your tattoo." So I try to find something similar that I can compliment them without coming off weird. Or just say, "Hey, I know like the clients I'm showing houses to right now have 3 young kids. One is in like a baby carrier, one's like 2, one's 4. And I learned this in x-ray school is like when you're talking to kids is to get on your knee or like squat to their eye level, because when you're towering over them, it looks more like a dominant type, like scary. And me being 5'8", it looks real scary. So I every time I see them, and they're a little rambunctious, but their parents seem to, they're always, the parents seem to think that they're annoying in the showing, and I'll get on their level and like say, what you doing today? Or do you go to school? Or if I don't know, I'm like, first time I meet them, I'll squat down and say, what's your name? Now, I kind of try to read the room with that though, because like my son's nonverbal and people do that to him and he doesn't talk back. So like, at least get on the room and say, hey, or get on their level. And if they speak, then ask them a question. And if they don't, just at least saying hey to them on their level. Now, if the parents are real guardish, of course, I wouldn't do that. I mean, don't come off creepy, but like these people obviously enjoy that I address their kids because their kids are a little wild. But when I get on their level, just to say, hey, what's up? It's just like they want attention, honestly. And so,
yeah. Well, 100%. Love that. So yeah, definitely. And Amanda had said it too, right? If you can connect with your kids, they're going to love you. So obviously use your emotional intelligence, right? And if somebody tells you something about their kids, so like, if Kelsey were to say, because I have this argument, not to put kids in dolls, but when somebody tells you something, like believe it, like, because I'll do the same. Like I'm sure you've probably done this with Jude, you'll say, hey, like, let's not pet this one. And then somebody's, oh, but I'm good with dogs. And I'm like, yeah, but she's not good with people. So whatever that is, I think you respect what they say. And so absolutely, how can I best, handle that? And one of the things is let the kids be part of the solution. So if like, let's say if you're going on a listing appointment, this is something that I'll get with Harrison and Sam on, is we could, taking a like a to-do for the kids so they feel included, and if they're little, maybe there's a coloring book so they're occupied while their parents are talking to you. Maybe do the same thing in the house, and yet again, I think that's a huge connection. If the kids feel connected, that's going to help the parents, and they're going to feel like calmer. So I love that. Okay, so now we're connecting. We've shown genuine curiosity, intentional listing. We've Facebook stalked them, connected with their kids. We've connected with them. And so now we want to go to motivation. Now, the motivation, this is a very, very important objective of that consultation, is to find out the client's motivation. So, how is this important to them? What are they reaching for? Sometimes it might be from a place of what have they been tolerating? So like in that same situation, like we've been, we're living with our parents, or, the house is too small. Oh my gosh, if I have to share that bathroom with my spouse for one more day, I'm gonna stab him in the eye with my, with, like, what is the frustrating thing, or what is the excitement? So are they moving toward excitement, or are they moving away from pain? Like, we want to really do a deep dive into their motivation. I've got some questions that I'll share with you that I didn't get them on here, but I'll get those. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Because once you've tapped into that person's passion, then we can help that person understand how working with you can help make the future that they want a reality. So that's going to be a huge piece that we want to make sure that we can get to their motivation, not just that first level of, I want to buy a house. Okay, great. Tell me about that house, blah, blah. What about that's important to you? And then Melinda, definitely, I'd love to hear from you around this piece.
Well, I was going to say two things. One thing, what Amanda said about the Facebook stalking. Another thing she's really good at whenever she Facebook stalks them is she'll see who they have friends in common. And I can't tell you how many times she's called me and said, Melinda, do you know you're friends with this person on Facebook? What do you know about them? Can you? And so that's another thing that you can do, is see who they have friends in common with and reach out, come in that direction too, and get them to give you a referral as well. And you can say, yeah, I saw.
Yeah. Well, again, 100%.
So she does that. Keller Williams just did the big thing with why, and it drove me crazy to find out their why. And but whenever I get a lead, and I give it to the agents, I always try to have a why, even on the listing appointment. And with the listing, I say, what's allowing you to leave, so that I can find out what's allowing them to leave to try to get the appointment to go from there, so I can find a common ground. And when I give you guys an appointment, I do try to find, I know sometimes y'all get aggravated at me because y'all feel like I'm giving you a lot more information than what you really need, but I'm trying to get as much as I can to find out about them, to give it to you so that you're better equipped with it to go. So I'm curious to see what else we can find out that I could pass on to you guys. Any other good ideas, Olivia?
Yeah. Well, we're going to go through and look at, like, during a call, finding the motivation, and then in the presentation or in the consultation, they can refer back to it as well. Whenever what you said, Melinda, it's that motivation's huge. And I'm so glad you brought that up too, about the not just Facebook stalking, but who do you have friends in common? Because if you have friends in common, you can ask, call them, tell me about this person, whatever. You can also, when you go and you're in the consultation, I saw that you and Bill are friends. How do you know Bill? Oh, we did a blah, blah, blah together. Oh, so again, we're going to keep going forward, but we're going to come back to the motivation if we have time today. If not, that's going to be a big piece of what we look at next week. So now we're into what we think of the presentation, but the whole thing is the presentation. But once you've asked that prospective client what they're looking for, and now you're going to talk a little about the expectation and ask what they want in a realtor, in their representative, you're going to explain what you are most passionate about, and you're going to explore the fit. So while we're going to have the formal presentation piece that we're going to be showing, one of the reasons that I wanted to introduce this to you like this is because if we know this, it doesn't matter the material, because we can ebb and flow, but we have to utilize it versus just like memorization, right? So in that presentation, you're going to ask them, what are you looking for from your realtor? And that way we get to say, okay, so here's an example of how I've helped someone. Here's how I work with that kind of goal. Here's what I do best as your representative. Just what I just described about my passion to help my clients sound like what you're looking for. And that's a little bit of we mainly want open-ended questions. That's a closed-ended questions, but that's because it's the sales presentation, right? Here's what you can expect if you work with me. Right. So those are some of the things that we can ask during that presentation piece. And the cool part is, if we're listening really well, all the way from that initial conversation, or if Melinda had the initial conversation, which she told us, the Facebook stalking and all that, and then when we really understand our motivation, we're going to make sure that we're presenting what they care about. What I mean by that is, let's say that we think we're really good at negotiating, but that person hasn't said nothing about negotiating. That's not important to them. What's really important to them is taking time to explain things. Well, that's the thing that you want to. It's not that you may still mention negotiation, but you want to talk about the thing that they care about. Let's say with a listing, they say that, they listed their house. They never even heard back from that agent after they listed the house. What they are concerned about is that they want the communication. You're going to say, tell me, you follow up with a question, and you're going to relate. And you're going to say, I've heard that about agents in the past, and I'm committed that doesn't happen. So we actually have so you're always going to hear back from me, typically when you call, but at least within 2 to 3 hours. But I guarantee you, within 24 hours, or that might be where you say, if for some reason you can't get in touch with me because I'm with another client, you can reach my assistant or my admin or my, whatever, you're going to touch on that so that they know, because that's the important piece for them. Then we're going to go into the information. So if we've done the first 3 steps really well, often that person is already sold. They're already in, or at least nearly in. And sometimes I think this doesn't happen. Well, this does maybe a little bit, but this doesn't happen because we can be a little bit concerned that this might turn them off. It really doesn't. People like to know what happens next. People like to know what their expectations are. So this is where you're going to briefly fill in the details that they need to make a decision, not just a decision about the house, but a decision will work with you. So let them know how often we'll meet and for how long. And so, part of that, what we're going to be sharing with them, what we'll do in a typical transaction. And of course, that some of that's in that presentation where we looked at the home inspection and things of that. Let them know about showing procedures. And, like, hey, you're going to get, I know I've sent you a list of houses. We've picked these 3. Typically, my buyers, find a house within that, first 3 to 5. If for any reason we don't find that one when we go out today to look at that house, I'll, ask you some other questions, and then we're going to send you, a list, and we're going to go find that. So give them what that looks like. Now, this is the other piece: is what is expected from them. What do you expect from that client? It might be, hey, like when we're in negotiations, the expectation is that you've got to be available, right? We might talk about, do they prefer text, phone calls? A lot of times these days, a lot of people prefer text, and that is 100% okay. What I might though do is say 100. I'm a huge texter too. We're going to text now. Am asking your permission that when it comes to something that's tough, or we're talking about pricing, or if I text and say, hey, we need to talk, that you will set a time to talk to me, right? Because there are certain things that you just, we can't get through to text sometimes. Let them how you'll relate with each other, and then fees and payment procedures. Okay, so all of this is in that informational piece. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of the other things that you'd like to do, or you've learned about this piece, or maybe even what you've learned so far today around gathering that information? Anything?
I'm going to be more thoughtful to share with my clients how many showings I expect it to take for them to find a home, so that they don't think this is just an open-ended, let's go see every house that ever hits the market in the next year before we decide that we wish we would have bought that first one.
Love that. Love that. Absolutely.
Because they will drag your ass all over the country.
Well, and so sometimes they think that they think that's what they're supposed to do, versus us kind of taking control and going, once I know what you're looking for, I'm gonna go out and in your time frame, I'm gonna go out and find that thing. Again, my intent is 3 to 5 houses, or the average client finds that house in 3 to 5. If we really know what you're looking for in 3 to 5 showings. But like, I love that.
Mine is what's expected of the client. I usually don't go over that too much, but definitely should start implementing that because of something that happened today.
Yeah, or they know, but they think nobody's going to call them on it, right? So like, again, like just really, really clear. This is the expectation. And that is going to be part of what we hand out in our inner consultation. Yet you don't have to wait till then. Absolutely, this is the expectation. Next week, my intent is for us to continue to go back through that piece. See you later, Sean. Go back through that piece where we're looking at fees and payment procedures and how to say that to the client. So now the decision. Is there anything else that you need to know to make a decision? How do you wish to proceed? Are you ready to say yes? What's holding you back from making a decision? What step would you like to take out of this conversation and keep moving forward? You are like, part of being a salesperson is we are trained in such a way, and that's part of what we're doing today, is to get that yes, to get their buy-in. Now, we also want to say it in such a way that we're truly getting a commitment in a way that maximizes their buy-in, versus somebody saying yes and then never calling you again or ghosting you, right? Like, there are times, and I'm guilty of this, we probably all are at some point or another, where we go, somebody says, how did that presentation go, or how did that meeting with the client go? Oh gosh, it went well, everybody was happy, everything seemed, well, did they sign with you? What? No, but they're going up. They said they would call me. you probably didn't address something, because again, this is everywhere that I've taught in the US, and especially the South. We don't like to tell people bad news. So if you're at my house and I don't really want to buy it, I'm going to say, oh man, I love everything, you know, I'll be in touch. And that's probably a real nice way to say you ain't ever going to hear from me again. So that's where, you know, well, what's holding you back from making a decision right now? You know, is there a lot of times when I hear that, that you need time to think about it, it's because there's a question that we haven't, that I haven't answered that maybe you don't feel comfortable sharing. Now, we're not gonna, you know, ransom them. I mean, if they get the decision, but are we making sure that we're just not accepting that surface level? Are we really tying that in? Same thing. What are you guys hearing? What are you thinking when we look at the decision?
I don't know if this relates. Okay. Well, my thing is like, I talk to people on the phone, obviously, and I give them my whole spiel, and then people will say yes, and they seem excited, and then, you know, by the time it's time for the agent to give them a call, we just never hear back from them. So it's like, and I say, you know, I ask them, like, are there any questions you have for me? Anything else you could think of? And I'm like, well, call me, text me. I work from my phone. Like, you're never bothering me. I don't know, you know, at the end. And then, you know, they say yes, yes, yes. And then get the agent to call them, and then they just disappear forever. I don't know if that's relevant, but.
Well, no, 100% it is, because again, like that's the cool part about like all of these pieces it is, right? It's that we're tying them at the end of that decision. So yeah, that's absolutely relevant. And I would imagine that you come across it a lot because of, you know, you're being the, you're always on the phones and that's your position, but we've all come across that, I'm sure. So something that think about yes and no. Anybody on here that has not read The Art of Negotiation, read that or listen to it. And because it's not just negotiating on a price, it's all of it. And so basically, when you think about if you're only getting yeses, we feel like we're winning, but it's actually when somebody gives us a no that we're having a real conversation. So we almost want to force somebody into saying, but basically you want to find a question that you can ask them that you get a no. So funny enough, getting a no is actually closer to getting a yes. So Amanda, again, I'm so glad you asked that question, and I'm making a note because I am going to cover that next week because it's such an important piece of that. So we want to get that no.
I mean, other than I can just completely relate, you know, where you get a yes and you get excited and then you think you're in, and then all of a sudden people disappear. And I feel like that happens honestly more often than not. And then people will pop back up again and they're ready to go out of nowhere. But even with consistent communication, you just don't hear anything back for forever.
Yeah.
So I definitely, I'm glad she brought it up. I would find value in that information next week as well.
Okay. We'll definitely get further into that next week. And this may be something that will help a little bit until then. Motivation. So like this is, and I'll share these scripts with you guys, but you know, if somebody says, whether it's on the phone or in the public, whatever, moving's a lot of work. What put that on your radar? They tell you, well, I've got having another baby. Oh, wow, you're having another baby. Tell me more about how having that baby and you know, kind of review whatever. And then, okay, they said, well, I want to be blah, blah, blah. Okay, so being in that next house with that extra bedroom, what will that, you know, what will that do for you? Gosh, it would relieve my mind. I don't want to, you know, choke everybody out anymore. And then you kind of think, well, whatever. Now, this might be an obvious question, but what will that, like, not feeling every day like you want to poke somebody in the eye, what would that mean for you? Oh my God, it'd be great because, you know, I'd like my husband more, I'd like my wife more, right? So what I'm hearing you say is getting into that house, isn't just about getting that third bedroom. It's about like saving your sanity. Is that right? Now, the true motivation. Does that make sense? And is there anything else? Is there anything else? Let them say. Now, this is the piece I think a lot of times we also don't do with motivation is we don't do the temp check. So you want to get into that house. Well, on a scale of 0 to 10, how motivated are you with buying that property? We assume, because they said they want to buy, a lot of times, and we know what assume does, we assume that they're a 10 or a 9 because they're talking to us or they're looking at the internet or whatever. Ask that question, what makes it that number? And they said a 6. Well, I don't know what that number means. They say 6, what makes that number? They tell you, and then this is what would need to happen for it to be a 10. Well, I have to land the new job. Okay, well, I know they're not a 10 and there's nothing I can do right? What would make that happen to make it a 10? My interest rates would be lower. So if I could get you an interest, so tell me about that. And they're going to tell you in yourself, if I could get your payment down to such and such, and would you be a 10? Yeah. Well, now I'm going to go find out if I can make that happen. And now they're a 10. So we've got 2 minutes. So I will send this to you, but I would love to hear thoughts about this or any other part of what we looked at today.
So my biggest takeaway from today and what I realized earlier is communication, and just being aware of your client. And I know we've obviously discussed this in the DISC classes and all of that, but for the first time in my career, I have a client that I honestly don't click with. We're not on the same page as far as expectations, even though I set them. If he's messaged me later in the evening, I probably won't get back until the morning unless it's an emergency kind of thing. And I just am realizing that either I need to be much more attentive. I need to be much more attentive with this particular client and adjust my communication style, and be okay with that. And also just be really aware of my clients' communication styles in general. Like I said, I really haven't run into this, so it's kind of messed with me and myself, honestly, because one of my things I do pride myself talking about communication is expectations up front, and discussing that. And I feel like a failure when I don't meet somebody's expectations. So anyway, just communication in general and how important that is, and setting expectations, whether it's for your time, how many houses you're going to show, things like that, doing a better job of that. And maybe I did it too late with this person because we had already seen houses and stuff before we got to have that conversation, and that might be part of it. But just really focusing on communication and expectations with clients, has been my primary takeaway from today.
Perfect. Love it. And I always remember when we like an expectation, if they can't meet the expectation, that doesn't make them bad or wrong, doesn't make us bad or wrong, but depending on if it's like a hard set expectation, for you it might be where sometimes like the client needs something that we can't give them, and you're going to go, you know what, I may not be the best fit for you, but I know somebody who may be. And you refer them over, or you, because sometimes, and
I picked up, Olivia, I picked up somebody just yesterday or the day before that actually wrote an offer with another agent at another company just a few weeks ago. The offer wasn't accepted, and she called and she's just like, I don't click with them. I don't, after I made the offer, it didn't get accepted. I hadn't heard back from them. I just don't click with them. Get me with I need to be with somebody else. So we picked them up. And so it's just being relatable. You've got to find something in common with them and find out what's important to them, or they're going to go find somebody else that will.
Well, and that's 100%. And if you can't, because that's the thing, is not everybody's for everybody. So if you can't, if it happens to you a lot, then you can solve, because that's probably the best fit. But if for some reason you're like this, like, you know, 1 out of every 50 clients, you're like, oh, well, let's connect them with somebody else. Let's not, I love that. So activity this, pay attention to, like, am I asking questions? Even if you're just doing and maybe practicing with one another, but inquire, follow up, question and then relate. Make sure we make sure that we're doing those pieces. And then if there was something that really jumped out at you on this call, that's the piece that and the last piece would be Ford. Google Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. All right, on that note, have an amazing weekend. I'll see you guys next week.